in here that we're talking about. It's citation number 3252, and the respondent was properly noticed. I'd like to enter those exhibits into evidence and the pictures that you have.
San Martin here? Have you seen the exhibits? Please make a comment. Would you please? Take a minute, review those. Make sure that you have no objection.
Why do I have to sit next to him? Or not sit next to him? I'm not sitting next to him. Him and his new gun.
Okay? Exhibits are entered into evidence.
Okay. The recommendations, well, let me say the corrective actions required is to pay the citation and to obtain a permit to replace the trees. The order to replace the trees is 10 25-gallon trees, 10 understory trees at 10 trees at 25 gallons, 10 understory trees at 10 gallons, and 10 shrubs, a minimum of 75% native species. The recommendations are to find the respondent in violation of 6-52 and order the respondent to pay the citation and to replant the trees.
How much is the citation?
$500.
So you're asking for $500 plus plan approximately 30.
Yes, and the administrative fee.
Let
And-
me ask a question.
Yes.
Did the respondent file a timely appeal of that citation?
Yes,
All right, so this is an appeal.
yes.
Did you have a recommendation for a time for compliance? Did I hear that?
I would think that 30 days would be enough. 30 days for compliance, and the amount of $200 per day for each day the violation continues to exist past the 30 days retroactive to this hearing.
Does the city have any other witnesses or whatever?
We may have some additional testimony as rebuttal depending upon the property owner's testimony.
Mark, if you please state your name or whomever. You want that for us? I want props.
Are they alive?
Don't worry, it's not.
As long as it's not a pig.
It's not a pig. Swear.
Okay, well, code knows, so you-
All right,
I was waiting for the pigs.
we'll get to that in just a minute.
Never showed
Please
up.
state, please state your name.
My name is Mark Sen Martin. I live at 1515 Bluefin Drive with my family. And some of you guys know me. I've been in this town for 25 years. I am currently the owner of Cashflow Jewelry and Pawn Gun Shop here in town. Just a little bit about me. Been here, like I said, a long time. Respect the town a lot. Very involved in the stuff that goes on here. I'm a Boy Scout leader, lots of different things, you know. I don't want to see anything bad happen in this place, okay? Now, this house that I live in now, it took us 10 years to get this house built, okay? We had to go through all that fun stuff that everybody had to go through back in the day till they got into the B-Pass, and now we finally got the house done. Long time coming, and we're really happy to be there. First of all, I object to the term lot clearing. It's not a lot, okay? It's our residence, okay? And we didn't clear, we trimmed the backyard. This is all we did. I have some pictures here I'm gonna pass out for you guys.
You have 2 copies of those?
I actually have like 5 copies.
Well, would you make sure that the city gets a copy?
Sure.
This here you go, sir. This is this. There's a picture of this. It is, George Garrett could probably tell you what the correct name is. I think they call it leather leaf or something like that. Okay, this is a exotic invasive species of vine, okay? Grows like crazy all over my backyard and side yard. That picture was taken this afternoon. Now, this here is what it does to trees, okay? Now what it does is it climbs and it spreads and it grows, and left unchecked, it will continue to suffocate out all the light and all the nourishments from the tree. Now, the corner of the yard that we're talking about, it is a very small corner of the yard, okay? There are some thatch palms and some other little things there. Here's some more. This is what is there right now. This is what it looks like after I have cleared those, trimmed back all those vines. So basically what we did is trim a vine in the backyard. We didn't do clearing. The pictures of the backhoe are my backhoe. It sits on the property from time to time. I lend it out. It helps moving rocks around or whatever you gotta do. It's a piece of equipment. I also have a riding lawnmower. I don't see pictures of that there though. So basically my contention to start with is I didn't need a permit. I don't need a permit to cut the grass. Don't need a permit to trim a tree like this. And this whole thing right from the get-go is outrageous, all right? What we have is a disgruntled neighbor who has a little fire pit on the ground in the backyard in his yard. And now that these vines are gone, his little fire pit is exposed, and he's very upset about that, okay? This is where this whole thing came from.
Everyone will have the chance.
So what I did was, like I said, trimmed back the vines. Now, when I did that, and the neighbor got very upset and went to every council person's house, okay, personally, asking them to come out and see my yard, George Garrett came over and he said, look, you really should have a permit, you know, did you need it? I don't know, it costs nothing, go down there and fill out the permit, and we'll do it. This is what I did. Here are copies of the permit. Here you go, sir. Trees are not protected. They are invasive. So I went down, I got the permit like I was asked to do, although I felt it was unnecessary. And there it is. Then, the day after the permit, I was issued a citation for not having the permit on the day of the permit. There you go. Oh, yeah, it's crazy, huh? Citation was issued on March 27th for not having a permit on March 26th, which you can clearly see in the permit is dated March 26th.
So your intent was to obtain this as an after-the-fact permit for the clearing of, for the trimming or clearing or whatever it is you'd already done? It was an after-the-fact permit?
Because I know George, and he said, you probably should get it just because. It
But you'd
wasn't
already, you'd already cleared it at the time you got the permit, correct?
Already trimmed the vines, yes, sir.
So your intention was to get it, to permit the work you'd already completed? That's what we call an after-the-fact permit.
And to finish up, because we stopped everything right there, because they said, you know, hey, be careful, be careful. So we stopped. So we went and got the permit so that we could finish cleaning up the yard. 'Cause
And
now it's a
did you
mess.
proceed to do that afterward?
Yes.
You finished the job, okay.
Not much, but yeah, we straightened it out, the rest of it.
Excuse me, for clarification, the date and time of the violation is noted on that citation, and it is 3/23.
No, this is the first. This is the first citation. The first citation. So then, what I did was contact the city, tell them that this ticket is not even valid on its face. I have a permit, the ticket says I didn't have a permit on that date. Here it is. They argued, then they said, okay. Oh, by the way, at that point, the fine was $500. End of story. So then I said, I want to fight this. I want to go in front of you guys and explain my case. So then that ticket went away.
That citation.
That citation. It went away. Now, I got a new one, a revised citation. The revised citation was issued a month later, April 24th, and it says 3/23, which was the date that we were working in the backyard. And The new fine, by the way, is now $500 plus go plant 30 trees, which I was threatened with by Mr. Hernstadt if I decided to fight this.
Now, how did the first permit go away?
How did the
Yeah,
first?
let me caution, to the panel, you shouldn't have, excuse me, you shouldn't have if this discussion's about the case, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to,
Mr. Judson?
if you're gonna communicate with each other about the case, you need to do it into the microphones. Okay.
How did the first citation go away?
It was rescinded.
The city withdrew it.
Yeah. The city withdrew it
That would be this one.
And reissued it, that's correct.
and reissued it, revised it, and again, standing up for, myself, my property rights, I was penalized further with trees on top of the 500. So at that point, I went into the city and I said, look, enough's enough. I'm tired of the whole thing. I'll give you the $500 you asked for originally, and let's be done with this. They said, no. Now we want trees too. And I said, are you telling me 2 days ago, I could have wrote you a check for 500 and been done, but now I can't because I contested it? Yes. So here we are.
May I
Don't know.
explain the reason for the,
I hope you
yeah,
can.
yeah, okay.
We'd love that.
I understand. Basically, the concept, obviously, for the citation is, it starts with the fact that we have a code provision, which is the one that's cited. It says, whenever you have any type of land clearing and tree removal of any nature, including invasive exotics, you have to get a permit from the city. And the reason for that is because we are, the city, and we've been required by the state to make sure that no improper clearing takes place, no improper removals take place. So we have a requirement that you have to come in for and get a permit, even if it's considered to essentially be a courtesy permit, so we can make sure and we can identify before the area is cleared what can be removed and what can't, what is exotic and what isn't exotic. We then have a provision in the code which kind of goes hand in hand. It's section 6-60 that says if you do take action to clear land without a permit or to remove any trees without a permit, you have to remediate, you have to mitigate. And so what the city is saying to you is that that wasn't included in the first citation. It's a requirement of our code, because if it's determined that something has been improperly removed, then the code mandates affirmatively that you've got to fix what you've done. Because had you obtained a permit to begin with, you never would have removed, theoretically, you never should have removed protected species to begin with. I think the issue here, if I may be so bold, is whether or not what was removed was protected or not protected.
Exactly. And
Anything to suggest that he took anything out that was protected?
I would defer to staff.
And George Garrett has already been to the house several times. He said there's no evidence that anything important or native has been removed.
Well, just a minute, that's hearsay.
That's
Mi-
hearsay.
Yeah.
That's
Mr. Garrett
hearsay.
is here. I mean, you can call him as a witness if you like.
George, get up
I
there.
want to ask one other question. And maybe I'm a little confused. What you're saying is you'd rather pay the first ticket as opposed to the second ticket. You're not arguing about the fact you took the trees out. You're arguing the fact that you want to pay ticket A versus ticket B. Is that what I'm hearing or not?
No. What you're hearing is that I didn't take any trees out. What I took was fine, and what I did was trim it. So there was no land clearing, as this giant term these people keep throwing out. No land clearing went on. Now, I can drive around on Yard Waste Day and photograph 20 trash cans in front of someone's house. Does that mean they needed a permit to clean up that 20 trash cans? Or is it 2? Or is it 50? Where is the number, where's the line drawn that what you can clean out of your backyard before you have to have a permit? I asked the city, and they said, oh, well, call us and we'll come over and tell you what you can do. Really, in my yard, they'll tell me what I can do.
All right. At this point, your contention is that you didn't take any invasive
He took invasives out, he didn't take anything else out.
That he took only invasives.
He took all the invasives out.
We're not, and here's what I would suggest is unfortunately the catch-22. Let's assume that there were that there were only invasives removed. Under our code, he still has to pay the $500 fine because unfortunately didn't get a permit. And the code, if you read the section here,
But they're still there. They're still there, as you can see in the
Okay.
pictures. I didn't remove them. I trimmed them.
the after-the-fact permit, he would have to pay whatever fines and fees are associated with that.
The rub here
Let's
is,
find out.
But as far as what was there, I defer obviously to staff.
Whoa, George, you're on.
Take my tree with me.
That's a problem.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
George Garrett, Director of Planning, and I guess in this place, or in this situation, city biologist. I get lots of roles. I guess I want to correct a couple things just factually, and then I can talk about trees. First, I did stop on 23rd and ask, actually, Mr. Sen Martin's wife to have any activity stopped that day. When I ultimately talked to Mr. Sen Martin, I didn't say a permit might be necessary. I said whether it's certainly if it's trees, a permit's necessary. If it's exotics, a permit's also necessary, but it's a fee-exempt permit based on policy of the city council. So a permit typically for any form of land clearing is required. Question is whether it's exotics and whether it's fee-exempt or not. My review of the property, which has actually occurred over probably 2 or 3 visits to the site, would indicate that as you look at it has been cleared. On the other hand, of whatever vegetation was there, there are a number of trees remaining. There are thatch palms remaining. If you walk the property line, there are also quite a number of native trees to the point where I had to actually step around them as I looked at them and counted them. There has been significant clearing of what was in the backyard. I estimated the area that was affected was about 1,100, a little over 1,100 square feet. If you look at the western boundary of Mr. Sen Martin's property, which actually is the property that in part, not in total, borders the complainant, portion of that actually borders another property. That is largely native, and in fact, if you walk the property line that they share, the trees that are on it and remain on it are native. If you then turn to the north and look at that property line, the vegetation that Mr. Sen Martin brought in is almost exclusively what is there. Colubrine asiatica, and as I recall, and this is off property at this point because it was cleared, but there are a number of native trees along that property line that sit back from the property line. And if you go out and look at it today as you stand there, I've got pictures of that border for probably 70 feet of the property, 50 to 70 feet of the property is Colubrine asiatica, and I believe in the corner there are actually 2 Brazilian peppers. So on one side, clearly absolutely native trees. On the other side, almost exclusively exotics. I can't tell you what was cleared from the property. I know what remains. And what remains are primarily native trees. Probably half a dozen thatch palms, taller than me. A couple of them that are fairly small. And then along the property line, a number of native trees. The suggestion that was made, and that was my suggestion, was actually made prior to the time of the second citation, not after, as indicated. And the recommendation was that I simply really did not know what was there based on my investigation. There are native trees there, and my suggestion was that native trees be replaced. And the number that was suggested was mine, a total of 30.
questions of Mr. Garrett?
No.
1,100 square feet, I'm having a hard time visualizing that. Is that an area of 25 by 50? Is that about?
20 by 50 is roughly, 20 by 60.
Okay.
I have a question, George. When you were out there, I mean, if there's backhoes on the property, did they dig out stumps? Did it look like the yard's been excavated? I mean, within 2 days of the work, you would, I'm sure, be able to tell that the yard was dug up or not dug up.
The thatch palms that I saw that were there were, again, my height, they're taller. They did not appear to be disturbed. There's one tree that is actually guyed up, if you will, in the way that maybe a landscaper would do it. If you go push against that tree, in fact, my experience in doing that was you couldn't push it over, number one. Number two, it didn't look like the root, or the root mass had been disturbed. I don't know what happened to it. The explanation that I heard from Mr. San Martin was that there was some disturbance of that tree, but I couldn't push it over, so.
It was, because it was covered in that vine, the vine was kind of supporting everything, and when it cut down the vine, the tree didn't have much support. The days, right after that, I don't know if you guys
Mr.
remember, a
Sherman.
couple months ago.
I apologize.
Yeah.
The days right after that were, we had a couple of good days of really, really windy days. And I went out there one day and the tree was leaning over. So I told you, I want vegetation on my property. I don't want the nasty stuff. It doesn't belong here. I tied off those trees and shored them up. And you see the pictures, they're still green. Those pictures were taken this morning. There's nothing wrong with those trees. They're not dying.
Thank you. Okay, does the city have any more?
I can
I believe
actually, I
that-
can pass on at
I'm
least
sorry.
one of the areas that,
George, this is the Asiatic heritage world, right?
yes, sir.
Okay,
Believe so.
and it comes from presumably Asia, I guess, it comes from somewhere other than here.
Yes.
In your experience as a biologist, would this choke off native vegetation if it was left unchecked?
Actually, if you look at what I've provided, I think you can see probably the same area of that photograph on adjacent property. And yes, the answer is absolutely. In fact, 2 properties over, about half of the property is now almost entirely that species.
Wow, okay, and.
It does choke it out. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to kill it, but certainly not going to leave any room for it,
But in theory, it could kill native vegetation.
potentially.
Is this something that you would have removed if you were issuing an original building permit? If somebody were to come in here and build a home, would you direct them to remove this as a function of the landscaping that would be required or the work that would be required to be on the property to get the permit?
Yeah, so the fact is, I mean, this remained on the property after the house was built, so whatever is there. And I indicated, there is absolutely an area of property, if you look at aerial photography, of about 1,200 square feet, 60 by 20, and I think the reference is appropriate, because it's just about what I identified. An approximately 60 by 20-foot area at the western, kind of northwestern side of this property was cleared.
You saw no evidence of native vegetation having been chopped down?
Time I was there, I didn't see any vegetation, frankly.
And he was there on the same day.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
So I don't know what happened to it, I just know it happened.
The city does have one additional witness, the city manager, I believe also, not that it's the city, but that the next door neighbor may want to.
Oh, I understand that, yeah, okay. You said, Roger, you were, I mean, was it?
Well, it's just, I did
Well,
go there, and I was
speak
thinking,
for
I
Michael.
just a second, hold on, I just want to show you a picture. That I took when I was there the other day.
Mr. Hernstead, did you take the oath earlier?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And we will make sure that gets
And you need,
sent and made part of the record.
Roger, would you please show it? Sure.
That's not the section that was trimmed. That's the other side of the tree, Roger.
One second. Please state your name and
Good evening, I'm Roger Hernstead, I'm the city manager. I had occasion to go with Mr. Garrett to the property, okay? It's clear to me from spending 15 years in public works, there's a difference between trimming a piece of property and clearing a piece of property. This property was cleared. Permit was not obtained, so we could ascertain what was on the property prior to the clearing, whether there were native species or not. When the property owner came to talk to us about the situation after the land had been cleared, okay, he claimed that none of the species there were native, they were all exotic. And of course, since the land was already cleared and no permit had been pulled to check the property in advance of the clearing, there was no way for us to ascertain exactly what was removed. It's clear that immediately adjacent to this property, that there are some native species, so unless God drew a line right down the property line, there's, in my opinion, a reasonable expectation that some of the property had some native species, and actually there are a couple of them still standing there when I was there. And the last thing I want to say for the record is that anybody who reaches an agreement with me to settle any issue, whether it's code enforcement or anything else of this nature, is done through a stipulated agreement that's signed and provided in writing and is part of this public record. And there was no such agreement with the property owner.
does the board have any questions? Mr. Hempstead?
I guess I asked the same question. If a piece of property is cleared, normally you see that an excavator's been used to dig out roots and move stuff around. Did the soil on the property look like it's been disturbed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have the opportunity to cross-examine? No, do you have any questions to ask?
From here?
Yeah,
From there?
oh,
No, from here. You do need to use
yeah,
the.
yeah, go ahead.
You're saying that in your vast experience that there are not usually, typically, lines of native and exotic species. Is that correct?
I'm saying that there's not a clear vertical line between someplace where there's native species and then a distinct line in the ground, and then there are none.
Like there are at my property where Mr. Garrett has just said that on one side it is almost completely exotic, on the other side it is almost completely native.
I'm saying that I believe that having looked at the aerial photographs and having looked at your property, that unless God was extremely careful in drawing an exact line in the area that you cleared to keep all the native species on one side of that line and not put any on the side that you cleared, it's pretty amazing to me.
Well, first of all, there are native species. I just passed the pictures around. But you're also a biologist?
No, sir.
Oh, okay. Because we've